Imagine witnessing this scene. A majestic empress draped in shimmering velvet and precious jewels. Her ornate dress cascades in breathtaking layers of silk and intricate lacework, while she moves with flawless elegance through the magnificent halls of her castle. Each step she takes is monitored. Every utterance is precisely measured, and her complete demeanor is carefully choreographed. However, behind this royal splendor exists a devastating reality that would never appear in any official court portrait. Inside the spectacular European castles of the 1600s and 1700s, where massive stone pillars stretched to elaborately decorated ceilings and intimate rooms were adorned with luxurious fabrics, these women existed under perpetual surveillance. Every movement resonated through corridors where attendants and nobles observed their behavior constantly. Beyond ornate doors decorated with gold fixtures and expensive drapery, their most personal experiences became issues of governmental significance. These imperial women seemed externally poised, graceful, aristocratic, and earning reverence from everyone they encountered. But inside their hearts, they were captives of a structure that eliminated their most fundamental human autonomy. Their physical forms were no longer personal possessions, but instead tools of diplomatic maneuvering and hereditary continuation. Monthly cycles delivered not merely natural bodily functions, but complete political warfare. These ladies weren't just handling their reproductive rhythms. They were traversing dangerous territory where their fertility status could decide the destiny of entire empires. Their menstrual timing wasn't confidential information. Rather, it transformed into governmental documentation, meticulously tracked, examined by medical experts, and communicated to assemblies of officials who determined their life paths. Royal doctors maintained comprehensive records of each cycle. Castle clerks documented schedules with accuracy that would impress today's computer specialists. When an empress's monthly flow was postponed, fear spread throughout the whole governmental system. Was she expecting the next ruler? Had she experienced a pregnancy loss that might threaten the crown's stability? Were there hidden health issues endangering the royal lineage? These weren't individual medical matters, they were questions of empire security. Occasionally, the scheduling of imperial marriages, foreign agreements, and even crowning events relied completely on whether an empress's cycles stayed consistent and foreseeable. Her reproductive system had been entirely integrated into the governmental apparatus. It had been seized by the state. Consider attempting to handle all this while being confined within what could only be called a prison of textiles and style. Imperial gowns during this period weren't merely attractive clothing, they were engineering wonders that could weigh equivalent to a young child. Multiple tiers of underskirts, complex hoop frameworks, inflexible bodices, elaborate support structures, and reinforced undergarments all worked together to achieve the ideal shape that royal fashion required. The fabric protection available during this historical period was attached with leather straps or secured using cord ties, positioned under numerous clothing layers and tightly bound corsets. Replacing these absorbent materials demanded partial or total clothing removal, a procedure that was completely impossible without help from reliable servants. This sensitive process needed repetition several times daily, frequently during extended formal occasions, or state functions where quiet departure wasn't feasible. The terror of spillage wasn't simply personal embarrassment, it symbolized a potential catastrophe of massive scale. Soiling an expensive cushion or marking a decorated royal seat could spark rumors across the court or even trigger harmful gossip about possible miscarriage that might carry diplomatic consequences. These extraordinary women needed to sustain perfect vigilance, absolute dignity, and complete self-discipline constantly, while dressed in clothing that made basic actions like sitting a complicated task. However, these empresses and duchesses never confronted these obstacles alone. They depended on a deliberately selected inner group of aristocratic women called ladies-in-waiting, whose duties reached far beyond what modern people might expect. These weren't simply intimate friends or casual associates. They were connected through unwavering dedication, social position, and frequently ancestral relationships spanning multiple generations. Only women of noble heritage were given such politically delicate responsibilities. Monthly, these faithful assistants helped replace linens with professional efficiency, quietly removed or thoroughly cleaned soiled materials, supported complex costume changes requiring hours, and constantly watched their mistress's physical well-being and emotional state. They kept comprehensive private documentation, delivered essential details to royal physicians, and held more personal knowledge about the empress's condition than anyone else throughout the complete palace establishment. Their attendance was completely vital, yet they needed to stay entirely unnoticed by external witnesses. They became the quiet protectors of their lady's most intimate truth, possessing information that could actually alter the destiny of whole countries if poorly managed or exposed. The textile materials were considerably more than standard household supplies. Many were specially made from premium imported cotton, refined European linen, or valuable silk that had journeyed thousands of miles from foreign territories. However, once these expensive materials became soiled, they couldn't simply be thrown away like ordinary rags, not only due to their substantial financial worth, but because of what they might disclose about the empress's health. Soiled cloths were initially thoroughly inspected by expert eyes, then handled through a complex purification ceremony requiring multiple days for completion. They were immersed in cold water specially treated, sometimes perfumed with costly oils or mixed with salt, vinegar, or premium wine to dissolve blood and remove smells. Nevertheless, even these trusted workers operated under continuous oversight from court authorities. In some extremely controlling royal courts, doctors would literally watch the water used during the cleaning procedure. They believed they could identify signs of internal disorder, illness, or even assassination attempts by thoroughly studying the color, transparency, or odor of the blood-stained water. As strange as it sounds to contemporary listeners, royal women were consistently forced to endure invasive medical examinations, particularly when their monthly cycles became unpredictable or ceased entirely. These medical procedures were neither compassionate nor performed with consideration for privacy or respect. Without modern medical tools or adequate hygiene understanding, these internal examinations could be tremendously painful and frequently caused infections or discomfort lasting days or weeks. Queen Catherine of Braganza, the Portuguese noble who married England's King Charles II, suffered years of such degrading evaluations. With each month passing without delivering the urgently required air, pressure increased from every direction, and medical interventions became progressively invasive and agonizing. The Queen's body slowly transformed from her personal property into a subject of continuous observation and analysis. When natural monthly cycles refused to resume independently, court doctors utilized an arsenal of alleged treatments, many causing significantly more damage than benefit. Mercury was an extremely popular component in fertility medicines. Actually, mercury gradually poisoned the nervous system and harmed essential internal organs. Lead powders were regularly applied to skin for masking natural body smells. These poisonous powders silently built up in the body across months and years, slowly destroying reproductive capability and mental function. Princess Charlotte of Wales, young, publicly adored, and under enormous pressure for producing an heir, experienced years of such misguided, harmful medical treatments. Her heartbreaking early death in 1817 is frequently blamed, partially on the accumulated effects of these hazardous medical approaches. Despite surviving all this physical and emotional suffering, royal women could absolutely never seem exhausted, sick, or anything less than completely flawless publicly. There were no recovery days in the royal schedule. Magnificent balls proceeded as planned. Official portraits were created on designated dates. Significant ceremonies occurred despite personal pain, and public presentations required maintenance at perfect standards. Privately reliable attendants made rapid modifications, arranged secret clothing changes, and employed silent hand gestures to signal when their mistress felt discomfort. But in public areas, nobody could ever suspect problems existed. Many royal women secretly recorded the emotional damage this forced silence caused their mental health. Duchess Elizabeth Charlotte of Orleans admitted her anger in personal correspondence, explaining how completely draining it felt to be treated like a breeding animal, examined without permission, and required to sustain perfect composure through experiences that would destroy most people's resolve. The recorded history of royal women frequently emphasizes their spectacular jewelry, elaborate clothing, and magnificent castles. But their actual daily reality reveals a totally different story. Under every gem-covered crown existed a woman fighting to survive a system that appreciated her exclusively for reproductive purposes. Monthly, her cycle meant more than personal biology. It became political currency. She couldn't speak about it freely. She couldn't stop royal responsibilities for physical pain. And she definitely couldn't influence how her body's natural processes were understood by others. But somehow she survived everything. So when you next observe a queen's portrait in a museum or palace, remember that under all that silk, lace, and gold existed a woman of incredible quiet courage